Okay, let's look at some more differences here between the different market types. So with perfect competition, as you'll recall, low prices. In fact, in the long run, prices are as low as they can possibly get without the firms going out of business, right? The minimum of average total cost, and this leads to efficient levels of output and an efficient price. Whereas with monopoly, there's really high prices and there's an inefficient level of output, so quantity is restricted and it's inefficient. Now, what about monopolistic competition? It's going to fall somewhere in between these extremes, right? Remember that these two are extremes on the spectrum of firms. Monopolistic competition is going to fall somewhere in between. Okay, so as you'll see, this represents a monopolistically competitive firm in the profitable situation and in the unprofitable situation. It looks very similar to what we saw with Monopoly. It's almost the same picture. And again, I'll point out the quick and easy way to tell graphically whether the firm is making a profit or not is whether or not the average total cost curve dips below the demand curve. So you can see here that it dips below the demand curve, and so this firm would make a profit. Whereas here, the average total cost curve does not dip below the demand curve, and so they would be making a loss in this situation. But the process of determining quantity and price is basically the same as monopoly, which again is why these types of firms are called monopolistically competitive firms, is because they look a lot like monopolies in terms of their graphs, and they make their output and price decisions basically the same way that monopolies do. All right, so again, they're gonna choose to produce where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, so that determines the quantity that they want to produce to maximize profit, and then they go up to the demand curve to figure out what price to charge, right? So just like a monopoly. And then as we can see, right, so same thing over here, and then let's see if the slide shows us the profit. Yep, so as we can see over here, since we've got our average total cost curve, we can go up from the quantity that maximizes profit up to the average total cost curve, and that gives the cost per unit. And then, of course, the price that's being charged per unit is higher, and so right there, that difference is profit per unit, right? The difference between price and average total cost per unit. And then if we multiply that profit per unit times the quantity, then we get total profit. Now over here with the loss, since the cost per unit is higher than the price, then that is a loss for every unit sold. That height there is the loss per unit. And if we multiply by the total quantity, then that gives us the total loss. So looks basically identical to what we already saw with Monopoly.